So what we're going to do is we're going to first break out these boards from these routing tabs. All you need to do is take some pliers and grab the PCB by where the little tab is and just push, and it'll snap off the boards from the we're just going to go ahead and call these things the rails. So you could snap off the boards from the rails. And once the rails have been snapped off, we're just going to go ahead and break these boards apart. And that's all the boards taken apart. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is start populating the LEDs. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the rectangular LEDs all through here. So you need roughly 128 of these to populate the chin pieces. So the first thing you'll notice is that there's a long lead and short lead on the LEDs, and the short lead coincides with the little line on the PCB. So you want to populate the LEDs like this. So there's one LED, and I have the long side on the left and the short side on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and do the top row. So there's the top row of LEDs populated, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the other side. So this is the right chin piece. It's not labeled as the right chin piece, but I'm gonna say it's the right chin piece. And this is the left chin piece. And I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing. So you see the little darker line, the heavier line there. That's where the shorter lead goes. And as you put the LEDs in, go ahead and bend the leads that poke through so that these don't fall out when you shake it upside down. Now we're going to go ahead and solder the top row into place. So now that these LEDs are mounted, we're going to go ahead and solder them into place. So flip them over, clamp them in your helping hands if you have a set of these, or I guess you could just set it down. And then take your soldering iron, and then we're going to go ahead and solder these into place. So here's how to do that. So what you want to do is take your soldering iron, heat up where you want to solder. So I'm heating up this leg of the LED, and I'm just going to apply solder right there until it forms a nice little cone. And if your solder doesn't melt that fast, you might want to get a different soldering iron. If it's taking a while for the solder to heat up and for you to be able to solder the lead into place, you really might want to get a higher wattage iron. So this is a 40 watt iron, and I think it works really well. But, I mean, it really just depends on how fast you want to work. With a 40 watt iron like this, soldering these leads is pretty easy. Just heat it up and touch it and go. And that's it. There's the top row soldered. I'm going to go ahead and trim these leads off and then start on the next one. So in order to trim these leads off, what you want to do is take your flush cutters or wire cutters, put them right up to where you want to trim. Come on, focus. Focus. There you go. Right where you want to trim, and just press the handle together and trim these leads off. You don't want to cut super flush with the board. You don't want to cut off there's little plated holes here. You don't want to cut those off by going too deep and getting between the solder and the PCB. You want to leave just a tiny bit of lead on the surface. And of course you don't want to leave the leads too big because you could short stuff out on them, but you want to cut them pretty neatly and not too close to the PCB. Oh, another thing to note is make sure you wear eye protection, because if these things get in your eye, you could really hurt yourself. So wear eye protection, at least sunglasses or something like that. Alright, so there's all the leads clipped on this side, and the LEDs are more or less aligned, but I'll show you how to align them perfectly later on. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is populate all the LEDs, well, I mean, one row, bend, solder, another row, bend, solder, clip, until I have all these rectangular LEDs filled in, and I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. So I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward through a bunch of it. So while soldering, I ran into a tiny little snag. So if you look at this board here, there's a blob of solder right here, but no LED. And you can see that the blob of solder has gone all the way through the board, so you can't really jam an LED in there. So I'm going to show you how to fix such a problem. So I'm going to take some masking tape just to outline which pad has that problem. So it's this one over here. No, you do not need to use masking tape. This is just for me to remember which one has the little problem. Alright, so to fix this problem, what you need is a flux pen, some solder wick, and some tweezers. So what you need to do is take your flux. Well, it doesn't have to be a flux pen. You can use the flux they sell in like a jar. But anyway, take the flux and apply it to the affected area. Doesn't really matter how much, just as long as you get some on there. And then what I like to do is take a bit of solder wick and cut it, and then take it with some tweezers so it doesn't burn up your hand, because this is copper. This is copper and it will conduct heat very well. So I'm going to go ahead and just lay the wick here and heat it up with my soldering iron, and it should suck all the solder out of there. I'm going to go ahead and attack it from the other side too. I don't know if you guys can see, but that hole is cleared out. Yeah, there we go, you can see that. So that hole has been cleared out. So that's how you fix a hole that's filled in with solder. If you accidentally brush some solder over there, no problem. This is how you fix it. So again, flux pen, solder wick, tweezers. And that's how you fix up little errors like that. So I'm going to go ahead and continue populating the LEDs.